Hi, welcome to the Spiritual Connection Show. I'm your host, Katie Augustyn. So I'm a transformation coach, I'm a shamanic practitioner, I'm an energy healer, and I'm the spiritual leader of Transformation Center CT, which is based in Westport, Connecticut. So at the center, we do a variety of things. We have individual sessions for healing and for coaching. We also have workshops, trainings, we even have retreats. And one thing that is a regular occurrence is once a month we have satsang, which means in the company of the truth in Sanskrit. And this is just about an hour where we come together, we meditate, we do some chanting. It's just a very peaceful time to spend with yourself. And we welcome you to come anytime you can. You can check out the dates on our website, which is Transformation Center CT. So the Spiritual Connection Show is all about connection. It's really an opportunity to connect more deeply with your own spiritual self, as well as meet and connect with the guests that we have on every week. So we're happy you're here. Please learn from our guests, from their journey, especially if you're just starting out on your spiritual path. So welcome tonight. My guest is Rodney Jones.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you made it. So a little bit about you before we start. So Rodney is a professional musician and music educator and has been for quite some time. I guess we'll hear about that. He is also a devoted spiritual seeker and finder. Which I love the way you phrase that. That's perfect. His greatest joy is sharing those things of the heart and spirit with others, as well as being a holder of space where others can share the stories of their lives. Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before we get started and talk about everything that you're up to, I'd like to ask my guest, tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey, like what got you to where you are now?
Sure. Well, I'll begin by saying that I'm a local boy. I was born in New Haven, Connecticut.
Okay.
My father was going to Yale Divinity School, of all things.
Okay.
He was a Christian minister for 60 years. And so we moved around a bit until I landed in New York. And all my life, from my earliest days to now, I always felt this pull to know the why of life, not the what, not what is happening, but why is it happening? Is there something more than just the day-to-day experiences that I'm living? This has been a driving force as long as I can remember. And so I set out in my life to answer that. And I sought to answer that through education and through teaching and through being a musician and a composer. And at this point in my life now, that has become, I've gone from playing the instrument to being the instrument in a sense. I've learned and I'm learning every day to be more aware of the lessons and blessings that life offers and to experience those in my journey and to enjoy and celebrate when others experience that in theirs.
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful journey.
It is.
It's not over, obviously.
No,
it's
no,
just
it's not
beginning.
at all.
It feels like, in a way, it is just beginning.
It is.
Yeah, yeah. So the music is still a big part of your life, but you are treating it differently. Can you explain a little more about that?
Well, I can. I always understood that music was not just something to listen to, but it also offered a portal into something more. And depending on the type of music, it often offered a safe passage into an expanded awareness that was not available in everyday life. And so I would sit beneath what then was a record player and drift away. And I discovered that different types of music would have me drift different places, that it was actually, there were places that were locations, inward locations, that I would experience when I would listen to music. And so this fascinated me. So when I became a musician, when I made that commitment to do that about 16 years old, that was always part of the hidden narrative of why I was into music. That music was not just to to share my story, but also to create a space where others could experience their story. And so that has been the informing and guiding light to my career as an educator as well as a performer.
Huh. So when you're creating music, I mean, this is kind of foreign to me in a way because I've never tried it. What is the process? How does that work?
It's a great question, and it's something, you know, I taught at Juilliard for years, and it's something that is by and large unknown to even some of the world's great educators and great musicians of the world. This process, it is something that was known to, you know, people like Brahms and Gustav Mahler and others, as well as John Coltrane from the jazz side and others. It is the process of playing what I want to hear versus playing what I want to say, or composing what I want to hear versus composing what I want to say. And this requires me to step outside the limited finite consciousness that I am as Rodney Jones into a larger room of what I am as the soul that I actually am. So I am at once the player of the music and at the same time the hearer of the music. And when those two things are in alignment and balance, then I know I've found the right thing, that it's what I want to share.
And you don't know that until you hear it.
Well, that's correct. The caveat is that often I hear it inwardly first, so I can hear the music within, and then it's about utilizing the skills and the craftsmanship that I have to manifest that in a way that as close as possible resembles the inner hearing.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you manifest what you've already internally heard.
In the same way that I might think of a sentence to say and then say it, if I hear music inside and then share it.
Yeah, for those of us who think before we speak.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah.
I'm not in that camp. But
Yeah, well, it has pros and cons.
Yeah. So I hadn't thought of that. I think that is a good analogy, actually. So your background, so you taught yourself when you started?
I did. I was going to be a limnologist. From early on, I knew that. A limnologist is a person who studies ponds and inland streams. Very specific.
Okay, I was
niche,
going to ask you,
yeah,
what
very
is
niche,
that?
Yeah. So I told my guitar teacher, a gentleman named Bruce Johnston, who was a master musician when I was about 15, and he told me, he said, "Rodney, you're getting really good at the guitar. You could probably play professionally if you wanted to." And I said, "Bruce, I already know I want to be a limnologist." And he was like, "What?" And I said, "No, I want to be a limnologist." And he said, "What's that?" I said, "You know, like turtles." And he said to me, he's talking to a 15-year-old boy now. He said, "Do you think girls will like a guitar or a turtle?"
Oh, that's hilarious.
And I was like, turtle guitar. Yeah, I think this music thing is becoming more interesting by the moment. But really, that was, I know and believe that was a moment where he was acting as a guide. He was acting as he was what's called golden tongue wisdom. He was offering a piece of wisdom to me about the direction I should take. It didn't matter if he was aware of its intention and purpose, but I believe that Spirit was utilizing him to offer that to me, so that in the consciousness and the lens through which I could understand.
Right.
Because if he had said, "Oh, it's it's this spiritual calling," I might not have gotten that. But when he put it in terms of a turtle and a girl, I could understand that at 15.
You got
and
that.
so he used the language that I could understand, and it gave me, it sent me down that mouse hunt. It sent me to that. So anyway, I ended up going to college. I studied music at City College in New York City, and Dizzy Gillespie, the founder, the inventor of modern jazz, was a guest with the college band. And afterwards, he said, "You sound really good. Would you like to join my band?"
You're kidding.
And I asked my band leader, a guy named John Lewis, who was a very famous pianist. Dizzy told me asked me to join his band. What should I do? And he said, "Absolutely not. Stay in school. No way. Do not go on the road with Dizzy Gillespie." He was adamant. So I asked my father later. He said, "Absolutely not. Stay in school." And I sat on the edge of my bed and I said, I wonder if I would learn more about jazz from people who teach it or the person that invented it. And I ended up playing with Dizzy Gillespie for 3 years at age of 19, and it was a master class and the greatest musical university I possibly could have had. It was amazing.
I can imagine. So you went on tour and did all wherever he went.
I did, and then from that I ended up meeting all the luminaries in the jazz world and its classical world as well. I was always interested in teaching, so I was teaching privately at that time, and then later I became a teacher at the Manhattan School of Music, and later at Juilliard, and then I began to perform, and I was Lena Horne's musical director for about 20 years, and I worked with a who's who. I was on the Rosie O'Donnell show for 6 years as the guitarist, and I've done a lot of those sort of things.
So that's some really interesting
that kind of stuff.
Experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. And currently, where are you with all of that?
Well, currently I am teaching online. I found that the things that I would offer at Juilliard and Manhattan School of Music, that students were paying $50,000 or more a year to learn. It seemed to me that there was such a hunger for people that wanted this information who had no access. They would not be able to get to school. But for a nominal fee, for pennies on the dollar, I could share with them the same sort of information, and people all over the world would be able to access the very things. I feel that's a calling I have, to share that kind of love that music provides. So that's what I'm doing primarily now. I still teach privately, but in the past year I did step aside from Juilliard and Manhattan School of Music to do this. And I have a wider audience, and I'm able to serve many more people.
Yeah, like literally all over the world?
All over the world.
So how does it work online?
Well, I teach, I have Facebook pages, and then you can go and if you sign up for a course, I have a number of different courses that are there, and they're available for a nominal fee.
Okay.
And I teach live, so I'm there with you, and I answer questions back and forth, and then I give recording backing tracks that people can play to, and I give their music written out and explain the process behind it. So really, it's a master class with me each week.
It's a full course, really.
It is, yeah.
And people do it, it's a weekly
They do it as a weekly thing, and at their own pace, and it's archived, so anyone can go at any time and go through. I think I have probably 72 hours of video and accompanying documents online right now that someone can go, and it's always, it's weekly and monthly, it's adding new content all the time.
That's awesome. I bet my husband would be interested in that. He's always wanted to learn the guitar.
Well, I'll give him a card.
Yeah, that would be just a wonderful opportunity. Yeah, and so then I understand that your music has kind of transitioned into another realm as well.
That's a nice way of saying that. Well, I would say that I think with age, when the more I realized over the years that I had more days behind than I had ahead, the impulse to fulfill the destiny for which I came here to do, as best I could understand that, has become a mounting and a more profound force. And so I have really always been committed to finding this resonance of love in music, in life, in the hearts of people, in everything and everyone. And the call and the pull to really commit fully to that, and to be the fullest expression of myself that I can be, and to help others do the same, has become the predominant thing that I put my attention on.
Okay, so that's your mission.
It is,
right
absolutely.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, you shared with me a couple of your CDs that reflect that. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, so this one is called The Resonance of Love.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's about, it is about my search and finding that resonance in all of life's experiences, to look at life's experiences as contrast rather than name them as good and bad, rather to see them as contrasting things that offer, I believe everything in life happens for me, nothing happens to me. And I believe that all of life's experiences offer both a lesson and a blessing. And so for me is to be in a space where there's less judgment about what is taking place and more attention on the why of it. And I also know that many of my life's experiences are through me for someone else. So a lot of times, a song might come through me that's for someone else. It's not for me. Or, sometimes a performance, maybe it's not about the music. Maybe it's about the person I'm going to meet. I don't believe that there's random occurrences. Paul Twitchell, who is a spiritual writer and the modern day founder of Eckankar, coined a term called randomity, which randomness is, anything at random. Randomity is the willingness and the ability to change instantly based upon the guidance of spirit. So that's what I might start writing a song that I believe is one thing, and it rapidly becomes apparent that it's really something else. So the only question I have is, do I go with that internal flow that seems to go this way, or do I stick to a preconceived idea? And I go with that flow.
That would have been my guess, that you would go with the flow. Yeah, so that's really cool. So what, you want to talk a little bit about Eckankar?
Sure.
Because I hadn't really heard of it before. I know you brought me this little book. It's called Eckankar, Ancient Wisdom
for Today.
For today.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'll share with you my experience. My experience with Eckankar. I've always, as I said, looked for the sound behind the sound, or the why. And I recognized early on that at its core, as best I could determine, the seeking of the world through religion and spiritual teachings had some common elements. There were elements of light, whether it's the burning of candles or seeing an inner light or this kind of thing, as well as sound, whether it's chanting or singing or hymns or this sort of thing. And I thought that was interesting. Paul Twitchell, was a master compiler and a researcher. He realized that what was at the core of all the spiritual teachings of the world, and he concluded it was that the teachings of the world, the spiritual teachings, were defined by light and sound. And he then discovered that, in fact, there are teachers and spiritual guides and spiritual teachers who have focused on that. Well, what's the purpose of that? The purpose of that is so that each of us as an individual can know who we are, that we are soul, an eternal spiritual being who cannot die, who's deathless and eternal. And we can know whose we are, that we are always in the embrace of divine love. We are always children of God, and that our lives have a purpose and that they do matter, that we're here for something. And it's worth a lifetime to discover that something. It's worth it to know that. So through techniques of contemplative techniques of experiencing the inner light and inner sound, the purpose is not to tell a person what to believe, but to have that person connect with this infinite source of love, whether you call it divine spirit or prana or the energy of the universe, whatever that is, to connect with that and to be able to hear and see its guidance in life. So then it then tells you what to do, in the sense of not saying do this, but in the sense of guiding that. When you can hear the voice of the deepest source, you're guided to your deepest truths and fulfill your deepest destiny, your fullest destiny. So if a person is Jewish, they can be in Eckankar, and it will enhance their experience if that's what it's for them. If a person is seeking, it will enhance the seeking process. The idea is to listen. So much of spirituality is speaking to God, and very little is listening to the answers that Spirit provides back. How do we listen? It's like as a trained musician, when I hear a piece of music, I hear volumes into the music that a person who doesn't know what they're listening to just hears a song.
That's very true.
And likewise spiritually, so the exercises found in the Ek teachings for me gave me a way to hear the heart song that was within me, and to experience the way that it's being touched by this love song that's coming from God all the time. And so Eckankar provides spiritual tools and techniques to have that experience as an individual. And for me, that's been invaluable. It's informed everything I've done and been in my life to date.
Yeah, no, that's great. So it's individual and universal.
Yeah. In a sense, I mean, there are Ekkas all over the world. The Ek teachings are all over the world. But the idea is to know who you are, to have the self-realized state.
Right. So
and then to realize the God within you, whose you are and your relationship to that,
Yeah.
and then to fulfill your spiritual purpose as you know, if you're a musician, how do you bring that awareness and that love to the music? If you're a host of a show, as you do, how do you bring that? You know, what do you do in order to fulfill that? And so the thing that is most profound for me is that Eckankar has given me a way to actually have the experience of the Holy Spirit and Divine Spirit, not the belief in it. It's given me a way to see and experience the action of Spirit in my life, not to believe that Spirit's in action. So it's not really in the element of belief and faith. Although it's faith, but it's faith based upon experience. It's not blind faith in that sense.
That's a really important distinction.
Yeah.
And I really like the way you describe that, because I totally agree with you. I'm not familiar with this particular Eckankar, but it's really how, you know, for people that I work with, my clients and other people, it's like that's what the goal is to get them to have that experience of whatever it is that they're seeking. And it's usually to go within and find out who they really are, and you know, have that conversation.
And so much of that is contingent upon what we're willing to accept, because you know your consciousness is your state of acceptance.
Yeah.
So you know, it's one thing to know something, but to actually step into being that thing, you know, is another thing. It requires to accept that, and to accept all the aspects of what it is to be both human and divine.
That's true.
And so it's that journey.
Yeah, because we're not perfect. I mean, if we're looking for that, then that's not, you know, we're not going to find that.
Well, you know, for me, the mission has been to consecrate my humanity as well as my divinity, both to the same intention.
Oh, okay. I like that. That's really cool. But I think, you know, the way you're describing it, it doesn't preclude anything.
No.
You know, you can still do what you do. You can still, like you said, belong to a religion if that's what you want.
Yeah, I mean, we're all, you know, those individuals that are here to serve, to give, that will find a love that's greater than themselves and be willing to serve that love. We're all pretty much the same people. You know, I believe that. And there are many different paths, and you know, there are many different roads, and all roads lead to somewhere. But if you want to know God, only love will get you there.
I totally agree with that. I mean, to me, that's all there is love.
For me too.
Yeah, and sometimes fear gets in the way of that, you know, so you either can have love or you can have fear, and this is not real.
Yeah. Well, fear is based upon the narrative we tell ourselves about our life's experiences. What we make life mean is what generates the fear. When we change that narrative, fear is gone. And the other part of it is that fear is also, you know, a way to gain spiritual courage. Without fear, there's never the chance to overcome it. And so fear provides a wonderful foil to gain the strength and spiritual courage to overcome it. And once you overcome it, then the fear is no longer necessary, but you still retain the strength.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
I have a lot of free time.
Well, I just felt that for me, the fear was more not so much something to be overcome, but something to learn from and work with.
Absolutely. The teacher.
Yeah, and to kind of, put it to work for you.
Yeah, I guess for many of us, you know, and myself, you know, it's the vestiges of, you know, the fight or flight when fear was about not getting eaten by a mammoth, you know, or eaten by a lion. And that's a fear that generates that kind of panic. Yeah. A lot of times my primitive mind will still default to that level of fear over things that aren't really worthy of that level of fear.
Yeah.
You know, same way people say, "Oh, I'm starving," but really they haven't eaten for 6 hours, 7 hours.
No,
you know?
that's a really good point.
But it's, you know, but we're trained conditionally, you know, to like, we're starving, so we want to seek out food, but really, we don't really need it.
You don't have to do it right this second. No, that's interesting, because I used to tell my son because he did have some anxieties growing up, and you know, and I would tell him, well, just think about this. What's the worst thing that could happen? You know, and it usually involved, well, I'm gonna fail this test, or something to do with school, you know, or I'm gonna look silly, or stupid. That was the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah, well, for kids,
Yeah, so I think that's good. It puts it in perspective. It's like, it's not for us in our culture right now, in our society, it's usually not about life or death. I mean, it can be, of course, but...
Well, we're blessed to have it not be about that.
Yes, we are. Yeah. So, can you give us a little example to go backtrack a little bit about a method or something that with the Eckankar that gets you in that place where you
Sure.
really want to be?
Sure. One of the core spiritual exercises that's given in Eckankar is the singing of Hu, H-U, which is a sacred sound. It's the origin of the word human or alleluia. It's the, Allahu Al-Akbar. It's the Hu in that. And it is the sound of the atoms of God as they manifest into the world. It is the sound of God's love for us. This is what Eckankar teaches. And so the Hu is sung like this. Hu. And I'll sing that for 15 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, and then open myself with expectation to what is the love song that God is giving back. Now, Hu is not the only word, but it is one of the primary spiritual exercises given in Eckankar. People that use Om, in other words, people sing God or sing, hymns. The intention is the same.
Yeah, chanting.
But every word has a different sort of vibration. And, if someone hasn't tried the Hu, it's something you can try. You can sing it to yourself and try it. Here again, the idea of the Hu is to not change your mind, but to open your heart. The idea of the Hu is not to tell you where to go, but to help you find your path. And so it's an exercise that a person can use anytime. I found it to be invaluable as a way of touching the love that's found deep within the heart of all of us, and then connecting to that love and being an instrument and a channel for that. To go from playing the instrument to being the instrument for that love is my goal.
That's great. So that's really accessible to just about anybody. They
Oh,
can
sure.
It's a good. So you recommend that for starting point if
Sure.
people are
The Hu can
interested.
be sung anytime, any way. Here again, one doesn't have to believe in it. I know as a teacher at university, a lot of times I will show students in year one something that doesn't really help them until year 3. They don't see that, but in the same way that an architect that's renovating a house, you look at a house and it's a mess, there's no carpet, the walls are unpainted, but the architect sees the vision of what it's to be. A person would look at that and say it's a mess. Well, so many of us as individuals look at ourselves not realizing we're being renovated. We judge ourselves and think this is who we are, and it's actually we're in renovation. And so the Hu has helped me to find the common thread that is binding all of those things. It has allowed me to see the synchronicity of life, to connect dreams and waking dreams and past life experiences and golden tongue wisdom, the answers that are coming from my life around me, and and soul travel and all these different aspects of the spiritual arts that are so prevalent today. What is the unifying thing? What is their intention and purpose when looked at as a whole? And that intention and purpose, I believe, and I have learned and experienced through the Ek teachings, is to learn to give and receive divine love. That at its root, all of my life's experiences are teaching me to receive divine love and to be a channel for that love.
That's perfect. And we're going to have to wrap up now, and it's on that ending. So I love that.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for being.
It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Rodney. It's
Thank
a pleasure
you.
to meet you. And thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in tonight to see Rodney. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Spiritual Connection. Thank you. Signing off. Blessings and good night.